I'll ask Ed, what is the obsession with the first 100 days in office? Why do people seem to be obsessed by that?
Well, it's partly a media situation, and I can tell you the Obama folks originally, I was sitting down with a senior White House aide a few days ago who said, look, this is just a hallmark holiday. It's sort of a manufactured holiday. You have to mark it, but it doesn't mean a lot because they believe you've got to measure him over a much longer period. But in the next breath, the same aide said, but if you're going to do a story, you should say this is the best first 100 days since FDR. So I think we've seen a flip where the Obama folks realized, look, they can't fight this anniversary. The media is going to spend a lot of time covering it. And frankly, the American people are going to be interested in, let's take stock. How has it gone in the first 100 days? And so that's why the president's going to have a primetime news conference, his third in these first 100 days on Wednesday evening. And it's going to be a chance for him to do two things. Talk about what he thinks are the accomplishments, but secondly, and perhaps most importantly, try to pivot to the next 100 days and beyond and try to say, look, this is just a down payment. These challenges, a lot more work to be done, certainly done.
Hey, Ron, I want to get to the numbers real quick, but you believe, real quickly, if you can just give it to me in a couple seconds, there's some historic significance to the first 100 days.
I think that's right, Don, and I think what Ed said was spot on. I think there's an obsession not only with political observers, but those folks in the media who say the first 100 days, let's look, what's the significance, what does this mean? I think the most important thing is going to be, let's take a measuring stick of what he's done for the first 100 days, but let's see what he's going to do for the first year in office. But it's a very important barometer for us to take a temperature of what he's done.
All right, let's get to it then. So how's his economic team doing? Since he's in office, $800 billion in stimulus, and then on, recovery. So David, how's his economic team doing?
I think on the budget they're doing very well. As Ed said, there really is a down payment on issues like health care and clean energy. I think on financial regulation and dealing with the financial and Wall Street crisis, I think they've done not such a good job. They've continued the Bush policy of no strings attached bailouts. We haven't seen a financial reform bill. So I think it's mixed. And I think the real issue here is that it's an open question. There's still a lot of open questions. What you can tell from the first 100 days is the trajectory. Where is this administration going? We know where it's going on budget and spending. We don't know where it's going on Wall Street and financial regulation.
But here's, Ron, here's what's really set Washington on edge. A $3.6 trillion budget set everyone in Washington on edge. Did this give the GOP ammunition? Because they may have felt that he should have stayed narrowly focused on the economy and not even get into other issues. But also what set him on edge was these trillions and trillions of dollars.
Well, Don, I think a lot of Republicans, myself included, gave the president the benefit of the doubt when he first came into office, where he said he was going to be a fiscal conservative, where he was going to trim the size of government. And you see this massive government spending, $787 billion for a stimulus package, $410 billion.
But Ron, and anyone, if you want to jump in here, isn't he sort of damned if he did or damned if he didn't? Because if he didn't try to fix the economy in some way, people would say, oh, he didn't do anything. And then if he tries to fix it, people are going to say, oh, he's spending too much money. Ed?
No, quite to the contrary, Don.
Let me just say one thing on that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, the bottom line is
real quick, I just think you have to spend money. You've got to spend money in an economic recession. The problem here is that you don't want to listen. I don't think you want to listen to conservatives who say now's the time to cut back. Most people agree that the way to prime the economy is to spend. And now we can debate whether he's spending it in the right way or not. But the overall numbers, you've got to spend money to prime the economy.
Go ahead, Ed.
Well, certainly that's the case the White House wanted to make in these first 100 days. And there's certainly some validity to it. If the president had not come up with a stimulus plan and we continue to bleed hundreds of thousands of jobs, certainly he was going to face a lot more pressure from the American people. So I think, though, long term, the bigger question is going to be beyond these 100 days. You know, first of all, is this stimulus package going to work? Is it going to help turn, stop the recession? But more broadly, as you've been pointing out, Don, that $3.5 trillion budget, is that just going to put us into so much debt? What is he going to do long term to try to cut?
How long is it going to take us to pay it off, or our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren? Ron, go ahead.
And exactly right. I mean, as what we've learned from looking at history, if you look at when Ronald Reagan came into office in 1981, 1982, what he did to get us out of a recession, what he inherited from the Carter administration, was not to spend more money, but to cut taxes, to cut spending, and to be more fiscally conservative and responsible. I think what the Obama administration has done is so financially irresponsible by putting trillions upon trillions of dollars on the debt and the deficit that Americans can't see, how do we get ourselves out of this? How do we get our children and grandchildren out of this? Very fiscally irresponsible.
It would be interesting if we, if we could sort of play the other angle, if he hadn't spent so much money, to see what people would be saying. He needs to spend to get us out of it. There's always something. Ron, give me a grade on when it comes to the economy.
On the economy, I'd give him a C-.
Okay.
I'd give him a C-. He spent far too much money. He's put far too much down as a down payment for irresponsible fiscal spending that I think we can't get out of.
I just don't understand how you can cite Ronald Reagan and then say
David, I need a grade from you.
Obama has spent too much money. I just want to be clear. Ronald Reagan created some of the biggest deficits this country's ever seen. I know.
I need a grade from you.
I think Obama gets. I think in my mind he gets a B+. He gets an A, and I'll break it down. An A on budget and spending. Yeah, on economic matters. A B+. He gets an A on spending, and he gets I'd say a B- on financial and Wall Street regulation.
All right. And the president, by saying that he's going to pull troops out of Iraq when our guys and girls over there, young ladies, are being killed by IEDs and other things, was that the right thing to do, Ron?
Well, I think it is. I think the president, this is one area where I won't criticize him on. I think this is an area where the president recognized that so much of our original mission in Iraq has been accomplished, but we need to make sure that we can solidify the gains that we've made in Afghanistan and make sure that we don't go backwards. And he's moved troops over from Iraq to Afghanistan. So I do applaud.
We're going to talk about Afghanistan, but you're saying so much of our mission. You're not saying the whole thing, because this is within the last couple of days there's been an upsurge in violence in Iraq. We have seen it. We have been reporting on it. So the issue is it really stable, or do we not know? Has it not been long enough to even gauge that? Ed Henry.
Well, certainly, you know, the president had a lot of pressure on him to keep that campaign promise to pull U.S. combat troops out within 16 months. He didn't quite meet that. He's pushing it to 19 months, but he's sort of finding middle ground there. And you see people like Ron on the right are giving him some credit. That may make some people on the left a little unhappy, but in order to establish his credentials as a commander-in-chief, he's trying to show that he's listening to the commanders on the ground.
Okay, David Srota, give me a grade on Iraq.
On Iraq, I think it's about a B+, A-. I think he's taken the right steps. He said that he wants to fulfill his campaign promise instead of going back on it. And his campaign promise was very clear. Now, you're right. It's a matter of a couple months. He's moved off it a little bit. But I think it's been pretty solid. And I think that's what he owes the American people, because that's what he promised us.
All right, Ron, give me a grade on Iraq.
I think Iraq, I'd agree with David. I'd give him about a B or a B+. I think the country is still very unstable. It's becoming more stable. It's very dangerous. But I think he has made the right decision to put more troops in Afghanistan, where we need to fight the fight.
That's very interesting that you say that, coming from a conservative. Both of you guys give him a B. I think you said B+, right? Okay, let's move on and talk about Afghanistan now. We've heard about the Taliban and the upswing in violence going on, and the upsurge in the Taliban there in Afghanistan and also in Pakistan. So let's talk about Afghanistan. The president, what he's doing now, moving more troops in, you said, Ron, it was the right thing to do. Talk to me more about that. Why so? When people are going there, many of them may not even be sure of their specific mission and how long they're going to stay.
Well, I think the Taliban has had a resurgence in the last couple of years. If you look just right now, the Taliban is within 70 miles of Islamabad, which is the capital of Pakistan. I think the United States and her allies need to make sure that the Taliban does not reemerge. They are not strengthened. They are not reinforced, not only in Pakistan, but in Afghanistan. And I think the president's made the proper move of making sure to shore up our forces over there to make sure that they cannot thrive in that region of the world.
And clearly, the president and, you know, the members of our armed service, really between a rock and a hard place, because they are being pulled to no end. If you're pulling people into Iraq, away from Iraq, into Afghanistan, it's tough on the military, and the president and the administration knows that, Ed.
You're right, Don, and this is one of the most important yet undercovered stories and decisions that this president made in the first 100 days. We talk so much about the economy and the financial crisis, and rightly so, as well as Iraq, but he sent 21,000 more U.S. troops to Afghanistan in these first 100 days. That is remarkable, and he obviously has to be concerned about what the mission is. He says he's come up with a new strategy, a little less focus on the military long term, more on diplomacy, but it's unclear yet whether it's going to work.
Okay, I'm out of time, really, so just real quickly, David, give me a grade on Afghanistan.
I can't give you a grade. We don't know what the mission is yet. We don't know if there's going to be mission creep, and so I'm going to abstain from this.
Good answer, Ron.
I agree. I'm going to abstain only because we need to make sure that we have the proper objectives, but I think the president's moving in the right direction to shore up our troops and our presence there.
So this is a NA, as they put on there, does not apply on the report card here.